somewhere you find that they look like this.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now let's look at our dailies for today, starting with Daily Trust newspaper. Right at the top, we have federal government raises 2022 budget estimate to 16.45 trillion naira. We also have Igbo in diaspora, not IPOB, behind sit-at-home order. This is according to Southeast governors. And the big headline there says, corruption leaks, pressure mounts on Buhari to probe Bagudu, Obi, others. And the rider says CSOs, lawyers demand special panel. We also have a reach out to EFCC. That's according to Justice Ministry presidency. We also have, we are studying reports, ICPC, CCB, EFCC silent. Law should take its course, APC, PDP, mom. And we also have Anambra governorship, INEC defies IPOB insists on November 6th election. Senate clears EFCC nominee who started school 1 year before birth. Wow. Then we also have B.Ed students in public universities to get 75,000 per semester. Oh, wow. And down there we have 30 killed as Ansaru terrorist bandits clash again in Kaduna. That's all we have on the Daily Trust newspaper.
Well, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning as well. We have some of the stories there. Say the first one at the very top. EFCC probes 157 billion naira pension fund fraud. You'd also find PDP chair zoning to North gains more support. You'd see Mark is front runner. 180 million telephone lines linked with NIN. You'd find also education students to get 75,000 stipend. That's, very encouraging. Fallout of what we were saying yesterday while we celebrated the Teachers' Day yesterday. Just, there's just need for us to find a way to encourage more people to give attention to the educational sector. And I hope that this will be followed through to the latter. You'd see killings, violence, Southeast governors revive Ebubeagu. Revive Ebubeagu. That's that's strange because, is it up to 1 year old? Ebubeagu? I'm not sure it's up to 1 year old and we're already reviving it. Interesting. The writer there says diaspora Igbo behind sit-at-home calls. You would see also Oyetola presents 129.7 billion naira 2022 budget estimates to Osun lawmakers. The lead story on the Nation, Buhari's 16.45 trillion naira budget 2022 pushes deficits to 7.9 trillion naira. The writers there, projected revenue is 8.53 trillion naira. President seeks review of MTEV FSP, and also you'd find lawmakers may get document tomorrow. At the very bottom, police parade, 2 suspected kidnappers in Abuja, 6 minors held for abduction. You'd also see that these are the major stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
Okay, let's head straight to the Punch newspaper today. Right at the top, we have Nigerians face airfare hikes. Foreign airports impose 950 billion naira charges. We also have budget. Federal government lowers revenue projection by 342 billion naira. 6 MTEF amendment. And we also have be prepared for 7-day isolation in UK. Federal government tells Nigerian travelers. I think this is following the exclusion of Nigerian certificate and COVID-19 certificates by the UK government. We also have Nigeria records 6,746 cases of COVID-19 vaccine side effects. That's a new one. And the big headline there says, Teachers' New Salary Scale. States NUT on collision course as government cites cash crunch. And the rider says NUT dismisses states' excuses, says only governors against teachers won't honor new scale. Ogun Ekiti base implementation on availability of funds. Benue banks on increased allocation. And we also have 11-member kidnap gang operating from Kano motor parks smashed. That's it on the Punch.
All right. On the Guardian newspaper this morning, at the very top above the lead story, you would see teachers threaten strike over minimum wage. Buhari presents 2022 budget tomorrow, sends revised MTFF. You'll see controversy trails EFCC's arrest of Ganduje's wife for alleged fraud. Southeast governors move to end IPOP's seat at home. The lead story says used vehicle prices soar over freight clearing charges FX. You'd see the riders there saying Nigeria spends 601.51 billion naira on importation of vehicles in HI 2021. Freight rate high because shipping airlines charge for import-export on single trip. Clearing of vehicles in Nigeria extremely expensive, cheap in Ghana, Benin, Togo. Those are the riders there that follow the story. You'd see also PIA adjustments raise 2022 budget to 16.4 trillion naira. Fresh concerns constrain implementation of PIA. Nigeria's direct funding of oil exploration pure madness, says ex-NAC boss. Oil minister seeks urgent actions on litigations to avert divestment by IOCs. Those are the major stories, and then at the very bottom you'd find a story there saying name National Assembly members sponsoring terrorism, reps challenges Buhari. You would find that story on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper.
Okay, before we go into review of these papers, let's take a look at the last paper, which is the Daily Sun. We have right at the top, Southeast governors, leaders roar, vow to end killings, sit at home. And the big headline says, PDP chair, leaders zero in on Mark. And the writer is saying, Babangida Aliyu Makarfi in strong contention. And below that, we have immigration seeks court's nod to file fresh evidence against ex-Rivers Governor Odili on passport seizure. We also have gunmen kill DSS officer, 2 vigilantes burn vehicles in Imo, Enugu. Federal government begins implementation of new retirement age for teachers. And then we have 2022 16 trillion naira budget, largest in Buhari's 6 years. And below that, we have Anambra Guba, INEC, NSA raise fresh alarm over deteriorating security.
All right, we'll be going into the reviews proper now, and like I told you, we have our newspaper reviewer for the day is Sunday Micheal Ogu, Deputy Business Editor, Daily Trust newspaper. Good morning, and it's good to have you, Jan.
Welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Yes. Now let's take a look at some of the stories that made the headlines hit there. The lead story on the Daily Trust, will be looking much deeper into that story with our other guests, but there are other stories of interest here, like the one on education. Yesterday was
World Teachers Day.
World Teachers Day, And we are waking up to these new promises about education students in public universities to get 75,000 naira. I hope that this is not just something to excite, students and, people who love education.
I am excited, even though I'm not a teacher, so you can imagine what the plight of people who are there, because the truth is, yes, it is designed to excite, it is designed to encourage, it is supposed to be some kind of incentive, and this is something we have been missing for a very long time. Say for Nigeria, every country that desires to move forward places premium on education. On the one hand, the quality and working condition of your teachers. On the other hand, encouraging people to take it up as a profession. Because we have treated teachers very badly, for all of us, even as young people, the last thing you want to encourage your child to do is to take up any profession in that teaching line, because you can't imagine how that child is going to survive as an adult.
I recall very well back in the university, sending students or applicants to the education department is more like saying, well, the rest of you who we cannot give you,
go to this place where nobody wants to take,
and all of that, just go there. It's like,
that was what it felt.
Of treatment.
Yes, that was what it felt like up to the late 90s. So if you don't meet up the cutoff mark for what is supposedly the competitive professions, and because they already have employed people to teach in those departments, they just basically refer every other person everywhere. So it became sort of a dumping ground for people who ab initio did not aspire to do these things, and maybe just for the sake of wanting to be in school took it up. And what happens at the end of the day is you get quite a few who becomes convert. The other one simply say, okay, let me pick up this BSc or BEd, and when I go out there, I could find a way to switch into something I really desire. So I think it's a welcome development, really.
Okay, now the government is citing cash crunch, to implement the new salary scale for teachers. Could you wrap up? What do you think that this move is aimed at?
It will be difficult to get to a time where they will have enough cash, yeah? And I think most of the complaints are coming from the state government, finding it difficult to meet up with some of these conditions that the teachers are asking of globally. The teachers' demand is that whether you are in Yauri or you are in some creek in Port Harcourt or some hinterland, you should be treated with some level of dignity, similar to your contemporaries in the big cities of Abuja, Lagos, and the rest of them. So don't give us this disjointed treatment. They wanted to negotiate something on a national level and then pass it on to the state government as platform. But as we have always done with the state government, it is not just even giving excuse about the new arrangement. It is they are even finding it difficult to keep up with what we currently have. Some states are owing 6-7 months, some others 11 months. As we speak, teachers' welfare, teachers, everything that concerns schools and teachers, as far as the states are concerned, have been relegated to the background because they do not understand the implication of keeping that aspect of our national life on the front burner. If you go to places like Turkey, to some European countries and in the US, teachers are the highest paid. It's a profession that comes with a lot of dignity and respect, but not in this case. I mean, the moment anybody walks up to your family, a prospecting suitor, and they said, "What's your profession?" You say you are a teacher. The first thought that runs through the minds of the family is, "I hope our daughter would not end up getting starved in this kind of house." So it paints the kind of picture of the reality of people in that profession.
Sad indeed.
Now, there are those who say that, look, this teaching profession, yes, it's supposed to be a priority and all of that, and we are not given that priority. Some say politicians are reluctant. There's no will to prioritize teaching, maybe because the impact of training a child, it takes quite a while for you to really begin to see it, because, for instance, you're raising a child from primary you may not see the immediate results of giving that quality education until maybe the child is about 25, 30, and all of that. Do you think that that's part of the reasons why we see this reluctance?
I see it from a multidimensional perspective. There is a deliberate attempt to undermine education. That's the way I call it, because the same politicians who have chosen not to make this a priority send their children to the UK. So when you put it on a scale, how do you balance that out? What are they seeking for in the UK? Is it just the prestige of schooling abroad? It's because they are going for quality. So they've completely bastardized what you have back home, and the only way to give their children what they think would be reckoned with anywhere in the world is to send them abroad on our own hard-earned money. We are subsidizing the education of their children. So on the one hand, it would be a cheap excuse for me, if you ask me, to think that it is because we are not seeing the value. Education is not cheap. It is the second thing for me. It's because we have promoted mediocrity and we have celebrated tokenism. So people just emerge from anywhere and they end up in political office. So if they can come up from anywhere, they can as well do anything.
Talking about mediocrity, we are seeing also another story. That Senate clears EFCC nominee who started school 1 year before birth.
Classic example.
I mean, how?
Classic example.
How
there is no way, if we speak in this, if we remain here for another 24 hours, we can never wrap our heads around these things. Somebody whom is established, allegedly, falsified his date of birth, and on comparison, he then showed that he was educated even before he started going to school even before he was conceived. And with this starking, repulsive reality, an assembly that is supposed to be a representation of you and I looks away and puts their seal on it. What does it speak to? It shows that they really don't regard us. They don't even understand that they are representing us, and they don't care what the repercussions will be.
Terrible. Let's take a look at one big headline. The Nation has picked this. Other dailies have also picked that as a big headline, where it says Buhari's 16.45 trillion budget 2022 pushes deficit to 7.9 trillion naira. What does this mean for Nigeria?
The possibility of more borrowings. Yeah. So from the benefit of a business editor, I was looking at the breakdown of that figures. And basically what it means is they had initially proposed to spend 13 trillion. And now, for whatever reason, they are saying, we want to jack it to 16 trillion. So they are jacking it by about 2.7 trillion extra. And the same statement, they are saying, from all our projections, we are only able to raise about 8-point-something trillion. What it then means is that the other 7-point-something trillion that we need, that we are planning to spend, will have to come from other sources. Very likely borrowings and more borrowing. So that is what we see. And they hinge it on a lot of things. They think that because we are going into an election year, they are supposed to raise this big amount of money for INEC to prepare ahead of next year's election, which is valid, about 100 billion. I saw somewhere that government ministries and agencies are owing power holding companies about 38 billion of that sum. So they've decided to also clear those backlog. Somewhere they are also, so quite a number of things that came in that they think will be instructive. But beyond all of these fiscal languages, we also understand that we are going into an election year. Usually it's a period for
I've seen elsewhere as well that they're doing this because of the amendment to the PIA.
Well, the amendments, yes, but the amendment did not cause this huge 2.7 trillion naira difference. So what it is, prior to the PIA, there is this 13% derivation that's supposed to go to oil-producing states. The new PIA frames that money in a different form. That was the argument about 3% and 5%, if you recall. So it's a different kind of calibration, In some cases, they will even be getting more money. It means they will not be spending as much as they used to do. In some other places, their estimates are short of what they had expected. So a bit of calibration, yes, but some political analysts have also argued that they are going into an election year. Some projects will require a bit more spending to bring them to fruition as a way of presenting a scorecard to say, hey, we have done A, B, C, and X, Y, Z, and for that reason, you can trust us even more.
And this brings back the argument of, shouldn't we be considering how to reduce the cost of running election in our country, looking at the times that we're in now?
So you recall, about a fortnight ago, we had this conversation. And that is where, for me, as a young man who is passionate about this country, I worry about the age bracket of people who make decisions for me. You know, so reducing costs would then mean, which would cost us more, physical transmission of election results or electronic transmission, which would cost us more, electronic voting that Kaduna State has repeatedly experimented, or this huge amount of money we spend on printing all kinds of security, what they call sensitive and non-sensitive materials, most times from abroad. We ship them. When Jaga was to hold his first election, he said he brought in about 17 Boeing 747 cargos. That was more than the entire shipment in a year, just to bring in election materials.
And for many of those materials, especially, for instance, the voters' car, the form,
the sensitive material, yes,
for the voting.
Yes.
An analysis was given by an expert earlier here too, that for most of those voting,
yes,
printing ballot papers,
yes,
it ends up wasted because it's not going to be used eventually.
Yes.
He gave an analysis that out of, say, maybe 100 million ballot papers that will be printed, you may not end up using up to 50.
Yeah, and because they sometimes, what they do is to err on the side of caution. So if there are 100 million people, it is safe to print 150. Anything could happen. At the point of transmission, conveying those materials, if the vehicle is involved in an accident and that condemns, you have to immediately make provisions. In so many other areas, we saw inconclusive election. They will not have the luxury of going back to issue new contracts. So they have to resort to what they have on the background and recalibrate for those inconclusive elections, for a repeat and all of that. So it is usually safe that if you need 100 million, you do 200 million. So it's correct. If everything goes as planned and 100 million copies of what you have printed ended up not being used, that is a colossal waste. Things you can basically would have done with your electronic form is just to recalibrate and you go ahead with it again.
Now, how much are we expecting from, in this proposal, how much are we expecting to go into capital expenditure?
Yeah, so all of the extra spending, ideally, they are saying will go into capital expenditure, which is some kind of relief. Well, if you like, especially to complete ongoing projects where spendings have been on for like 3-4 years. To be fair, that looks like a good deal. But it is a critical balance between how much more should we borrow? You know, how much more debt can we carry? Because the reality today is if we are earning 100 naira as a country, we are using 95 naira to pay back our debt. So in the actual sense, you are just what, 5 naira. That's our reality.
Terrible.
Living on debt. Well, that's sad. Well, we thank you for coming on the program this morning. We'll end the review here for now so that we can take a look at other discussions on the program. We've been speaking with Sunday Micheal Ogu, the Deputy Business Editor, Daily Trust newspaper. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure as always.
Let's take this quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at some of the other stories that made the headlines as well. This time around, having it as a discussion with our guests. Pressure is mounting on President Buhari to probe Bagudu Obi others who were named in a recent investigation by Pandora Papers. Stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they must look at the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that